Friendships. Some of our most valued relationships are friendships. From acquaintances to good friends to best friends to work friends to school friends, there are all types of friendships. And friendships can start many different places. Some friendships start where people grow up. They're neighborhood friends. They go out on the playground, they hang out together. Sometimes friendships start from your school relationships. Maybe the different classes you have together, maybe you're in sports. Sometimes they come from activities. Maybe someone's in martial arts or they play music together. It's interesting to see how many different friendships start and how they develop, and also to see the different types of friendships. Unfortunately, sometimes friendships and making friends is a lot easier said than done. And that's going to be the focus of the talk today. Gary, good to see you.
You too, Mike.
When we look at all these different types of friendships that are out there, and from a perspective of an educator and from a parent and a family member, from an educator, you see kids in class and the structure of the class, but you also see friendships develop, whether it be before school, after school, at lunch, at practice. That's where you can really see kind of the nitty gritty of friendships and if someone's having a hard time with it. Likewise, at home, parents and family members, they really have an eagle eye on this topic. And they can see if their junior high or middle school son or daughter is home on the weekend and they're kind of isolated and not hanging out with anybody, obviously that's a little bit of a concern. So I guess the first question is for parents and teachers and other family members, at what point is it a problem?
Well, Mike, it's not uncommon for children to go through periods where they don't have as many friends or they prefer being alone. As a matter of fact, it's not even uncommon for adults. We all do this. And we go through these phases. If our parents begin to notice that the child is being affected academically, socially, or emotionally, or it's affecting their day-to-day functioning, this becomes a point where they maybe start looking at things.
Okay, so kind of to piggyback on that, what are some of the signs you can see?
There's so many, but some of the major ones, the bigger ones are things like noticing a decline in the child's schoolwork or academic performance. They might not enjoy or participate in activities that used to be so much fun for them. You might get a child that doesn't want to go to school or flat out refuses to go to school and could even develop psychosomatic symptoms like headaches or stomach aches. You might have a child who appears sad or anxious about joining social activities. They say that they feel lonely or excluded. They might begin to isolate more and spend more time alone in their bedroom. Sometimes you'll see a situation where a child starts to become more argumentative and starts having conflicts with peers, with classmates, or even with family members. Or you could even have sometimes with younger children, they start regressing or becoming more clingy. Often you'll see children are just struggling in general social settings. It might be that they are misreading social cues. They are not getting certain body language, facial expressions, type of things. And when these things are happening, again, it becomes a clue there might be a problem. But it is important, and the key is that with these issues, it's not just the behavior themselves. Number one, are there several of them? And number two, are they happening over an extended period of time that's affecting the child? Because it's not uncommon for two teenage girls to have an argument and they're best of friends on a Friday afternoon. They spend the entire weekend going through all these things. Right. And then Monday morning, everything's fantastic. This goes on everywhere. It's again, is it happening over an extended period of time? Are there several of these issues going on? And are you seeing your child being affected over this period?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's a great list of things you went over, different signs. And I think all of us experience these things at one time or another. And also some people are more extroverted and some people are more introverted. And so
Right.
Sometimes it's recognizing that with the child. Is my child just shy or are they very outgoing? And then as you point out, just seeing if it's something that happens with greater frequency, where it almost becomes the pattern and the norm. That's when I imagine it would be a greater concern.
Exactly.
So I'm sure as parents look at this, especially or family members, especially for someone maybe who is more extrovert or outgoing, and they're seeing this like, that's not how I was when I was a kid. Why isn't my kid just going out there and making friends? It wasn't that hard when I was a child. To explain that to the family members, what tends to cause this?
Well, things certainly have changed. They've changed in many respects with the advent of technology and social media, where children have become much more isolated by working on computers, the social medias where they spend their time alone.
I'm just sorry to interrupt, but I would think today it's even more difficult because in some cases they're super isolated, But in some cases, that's their social interaction, is by the computer and the social media. Where they say, the parent may say, hey, you're just playing video games all day. And the child must say, hey, but I'm talking to my 3 friends from school, my 2 friends from basketball. So for a parent, it's kind of finding that happy medium as to whether, are they really socializing?
And are these real friends?
Are these real friends?
Right.
And who are these friends?
Right.
Or are they just being isolated and just playing against the computer and the machine all the time?
And this friend, this 12-year-old girl that they're talking to could be a 60-year-old man that's around the corner. And that's why as parents, we've become so much more reluctant to allow our children to learn and to grow and to take risks. When our children are in the park, we tell them, if you're going to the restroom, you've got to go 2 at a time in case something happens. Right. When they say they want to go visit their friends, we say, well, you're not going on your own. We need to take you there, and we need to meet the parents first, and we need to meet the child first. And so it's very different. But aside from those things, there are many reasons, and so many, but some of these are due to what might be inattention, sometimes caused by attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It might be a child who's been diagnosed in the autism spectrum or another communication disorder. It might be a child who's been diagnosed with learning disabilities or depression or social anxiety, even a child with ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. It could be a child who's been the victim of bullying, or a child that has impulsivity. They blurt things out without thinking, or they interrupt, don't let other people finish talking. It could be a child who has weak emotional regulation, where they also are impulsive, where they get angry easily, where they struggle with sharing. And it could be a child who has low self-esteem. And with all of this, there's subsections which could be part of what I've just said, but you sometimes have kids who don't understand the vocabulary or the language, and they misconstrue or misinterpret something. Sometimes this is an expressive or receptive language difficulty. Children with short-term memories who can't hold on to multiple instructions, and it creates confusion. A child who's got poor sequencing skills, and many children who don't make the connection to the big picture, what we call cause-effect relationships. There are many, but these are some of the bigger ones as to what could be causing the difficulty.
Yeah, that cause-effect and seeing the big picture, I think that's a huge one. I know from my teaching experience, and you have so many kids who come and they struggle with friendships and they want to know why. And it's even that reading the room. If you come across 3 kids and they're talking about a basketball game, and all of a sudden you interrupt the conversation and you start talking about Pokemon, there's nothing wrong with talking about Pokemon, but those 3 other kids are going to be like, well, why are you talking about Pokemon? We're talking about basketball. So it's reading the room, reading the situation, reading and understanding how to transition from one topic to the next. For some kids, it's second nature, but from other kids, it's a skill that they have to learn.
Exactly.
They have to recognize when to make that conversation change.
Right. And you're right. That cause-effect relationship almost encompasses all of this.
Absolutely. So as you have these things that cause it, then you're looking at, okay, what's going to be the long-term effect? If these friendships and they're struggling with this, what are the long-term effects kind of down the road?
Well, certainly with a child, it impacts school. It impacts the activities that they're doing. And aside from it impacting the school and activities, friendships as a child or engaging socially gives you the skills and the tools and prepares you as you grow up to be able to make it in the real world.
Right.
This is where you learn to compromise. This is where you learn to take turns.
Nice.
This is where you learn to resolve conflicts, all these kinds of things. And if you don't have friends to do this with, not only is it affecting you short term, but it's not preparing you for the long run. And as adults, when you're struggling with friends, it's going to impact, obviously, relationships. It's going to impact your work, your job. Everything gets impacted. And the whole idea of friends is that we are social animals. As human beings, we want to be happy.
Right.
And what makes us happy, sometimes people don't get what it's really about, but it is having friends. It's having friends. And so not having friends doesn't prepare you as you become an adult. And as an adult, you're going to go through struggles in everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And even recognizing that the different types of friends are okay. Whether it be an acquaintance, a good friend, a best friend, you don't have to be a best friend with everybody. It's good to have an acquaintance. Maybe you have that one topic that you have in common. Maybe it's a music band or a musical instrument or a TV show that that maybe you and that person aren't going to hang out all the time. But whenever you see that person in the hall or at school, that's something common that you can discuss, that you can talk about. And that's school, that's home, that's life, whether it be weather, sports, whatever it is, having something that you can at least converse about is very important. It just kind of piggybacks on the idea that friends are just so important. And kind of in terms of like, can you just talk a little bit more about in terms of friends being so important in life and school and so forth?
Well, in a nutshell, friends enhance our happiness and quality of life. Friends are people with we can share our problems, provide us with emotional support, who help us release stress and anxiety. Even as adults, these are people who play a part in the learning and growing process for us, help us feel valued and shape our own identity as who we are as people. So again, they enhance our happiness and quality of life. It's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, those different types of friendships and friends, even the ones when you recognize, when you mentioned so many great points there, but the different issues that someone faces in life, whether it be real serious things, maybe they have financial issues, maybe they have relationship issues. Sometimes you have those different friends that you can go to talk about those things. And likewise, maybe you're the friend that's a really good listener and people come to you for those things. So it's really kind of an amazing aspect of friendships, or you have these different types of friends that maybe you have different relationships with, and you talk about different things with them. And that's, as you proceed through school and through adulthood, you kind of come across this, and it really is an amazing thing. So for those of us and those individuals out there who are kind of struggling with friendships, what are some recommendations maybe you can share, not only with parents, but teachers and other family members to kind of help individuals who are struggling with this?
Well, if we had a 2-hour talk, it probably wouldn't be enough time to go over everything that right. We as parents could do, and as parents, what you can do to help your child. It's important, first of all, just that children understand what is involved in making friends. Right. In other words, the importance of first impressions, the fact that most people like to think about themselves and using that as a tool to make friends, understanding the concept of confidentiality, appropriate tone and volume, truth and trust, these kinds of things. So understanding what is going to help make a good friend, and then to achieve these skills of what is encompassed, for example, in making a good first impression. The handshake, the eye contact, how to greet, compromising, learning how to compromise, being a good winner, being a good loser, keeping promises, how to give appropriate compliments, all these kinds of things. And also talking about the rules that can destroy friendships, such as boasting and bragging and teasing and bullying. So as I said, we could go on for a long, long time. But if I was to give some tips to parents, the first thing I would say to you as a parent is try and ascertain why other children are avoiding your child. Instead of getting on the back of a child who might be teasing or bullying, and you should certainly deal with it, but try to ascertain what your child is doing, because if your child is doing something due to lack of understanding or it's inadvertent, by gaining some insight and being able to make the changes, it's going to certainly help you to help your child to get on the first step to making friends. Some other things that you can do is when getting your child together with another child, first of all, it's very important, stick to just one child. Do not get 3 children together, because invariably when you get 3 children together, one of the child or the children is excluded, and that in itself becomes a problem. It defeats the whole purpose. And when you're getting that one child together with your child, structure everything. Start off with small times so that it is successful. Don't make a whole afternoon where there could be potential problems or pitfalls. Keep the time small and short. And during that time, structure everything and let your child know what's going to go on. Predetermine the time frame, what time snacks will be served, which activities to encourage, which to avoid, so that you, as much as possible, make this successful. And over the course of time, you can then start extending the period. And during this time, also arrange a code or a signal to avoid problem situations, so that if your child's doing something that you can see is going down the wrong road, you can circumvent the problem without embarrassing your child, without looking as though you're interfering. It's almost just an organic way of your child saying, this is not a good idea, let's do a U-turn, or whatever the case might be. So these are just a couple of things, and by at least following these kinds of things, you're on the start to helping your child to get onto that friendship.
Yeah, wow, a lot of great stuff there. So many things are going through my mind as you're saying, like different situations and examples, and just to talk about one in terms of compromising. So many kids, like when someone is invited to somebody's home, what does that entail? Does that mean that you get to dictate everything you do that day? Likewise, when you're a guest going to somebody's house, it doesn't mean you go right to the refrigerator. It's for a lot of kids, they may have that like almost like it's common sense not to do those things. But a lot of kids struggle with that. They're not sure when they go to a friend's house, what do I do? How do I act? So just talking about it and learning the skills, and don't take it for granted that just dropping somebody off at another kid's house, that they're going to know what to do or how to act.
Right. And this, again, as you said, it's under the guise of being a good host. In other words,
Absolutely.
offer your friend a drink, serve them first, let them pick the games, all these kinds of things. So there are lots of things that that parents can do, but this is a start.
Yeah, and at every age. For example, that might be an elementary or middle school student. Then when someone gets to high school, it's not you picking the movie you get to go to all the time. It's not you picking the restaurant you get to go to all the time. It's kind of compromising. You pick this week, I pick next week. Those type of behaviors go a long way. It's showing respect for your friend. It's showing that you care about their feelings, what they want to do. So a lot of great points there. So thank you, Gary.
Pleasure,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Good to be with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a couple things to follow up on that. Obviously, friendships, one of our most cherished relationships that we have, the different types of friendships, how to develop friendships. And I just think it's important to point out that when you're talking to your child about this, really listen to what they have to say, communicate with your child. If they're struggling with friendships, think about different ways to help them with this. And there's 1,000 examples, and Gary just talked about so many wonderful things. But even like, hey, my child, this is one of their interests. Maybe they really like sports, or they like music, or they like video games, or they like gaming. All these different things that are out there, you find that interest. And a lot of times, if they can find somebody else who has those similar interests, so many wonderful friendships can develop from that. I know Gary and myself, we can use sports as an example, growing up and playing different sports, and just the friendships you develop through that, because you have this same interest that you can initially talk about, and you go through practice together and games together, and you just develop this bond. And it doesn't have to be sports. It can be so many other things, whether it be music, whether it be martial arts, whether it be, we talked about Pokemon cards. So many kids are into things like that. It's finding the interest, finding those kids that have similar interests, and you develop friendships from there. That's just one example. So we really thank you for joining us today. Hope you learned a lot, and we look forward to seeing you next time.